before I continue, just let me just take this time. I just want to thank all of you, and especially uh, last week in the in Christmas, and you stay for the luncheon that's given for my Helen Mine's 40th anniversary. And I just want to thank some people actually chipped in together and just get a roast pig. I think we had fun. Of course, thank Enoch for taking all those good pictures, and I was able to show my friends and my family. And of course, just also want to thank all of you for the blessings that you've given, and it was just it's just amazing. Anyway, I just want to take this time. Just want to thank all of you first, and some of you actually was very. I think it's I can't thank them enough to say, well, wait for another 40 years to celebrate my 80th anniversary. I don't know if I would live that long, but anyway, I'll take this blessing from you. But anyway, it's amazing. It's really amazing that we can, as a church family, we come together and just to celebrate. And it's not a surprise because I know that my brother and my sister-in-law is coming, and there's a cousin that I haven't met for ages anyway, and so he also came, and in fact he drove all the way from Seattle, and before the storm hit, I mean, of course, before the snowstorm hits anyway, so yeah, so we had a great time anyway. It's unfortunate one family is supposed to come, and they were traveling on Christmas Eve, and they couldn't get on the plane at all. It was the plane was canceled, and so it's sort of a little bit of a disappointment that I wish that they could be here. They're really good friends anyway, and but like last week, I really had I had a surprise visit by about a couple, and they were like in lunch. They were sitting right there around that in that area. They were part of my congregation when I was in Seattle in that church. It's where Pastor Keone and I we served anyway. When I met them, they were still in high school. And when I left Seattle, which is in this case 10 years ago, they were still at the university and have not finished at least a bachelor yet. But like I just saw something so good in that brother, like we all see the potential in him. So like at that time, I asked him to consider if he would, considering like after finish the university, he would go to seminary, and hopefully one day he will be able to serve a church. And at the time, he didn't agree to. At least he didn't promise he was going to do that. He promised his dad he would just take care of the family business, which is in jewelry. So I understand that, but I never lost that sort of, or maybe I never lost that little bit of that vision I saw in him. So as time goes on, he after a couple of moves, first he moved from Seattle to Spokane, and then now Spokane to Kingman, or Arizona. So I guess he didn't know that I was here. Well, he probably knew I was here, but he didn't know that I was celebrating my 40th anniversary. So he and his wife came. And we just have a ball, so Pastor Keone and I, and of course with the two of them, we took pictures and just to celebrate the special occasion. And when we were taking the picture, he just pulled me to the side and told me, "Hey, Pastor Allen, you know what? And I just enrolled in an online class in Southwest Seminary." I was just so happy with it, I was so glad to see he finally just took that step and make and decided just to take that step. And I hope one day, he would be a pastor, and I hope maybe even one day he'll be serving in an Alliance Church. But anyway, just so thankful. I was just so thankful. Like this news that he gave me, and then once again I learned what I taught before about like making decisions. And at least according to the latest Cornell University research, an average person makes about like 35,000 decisions per day. So I don't know whether the Jeff's alma mater was right in doing this anyway, but like that's his school, and they did that research, and they said like if you don't know what like 35,000 decision means, it just means that a person would make one decision in an average of 2.5 seconds. And that's a lot, and no wonder many of us are so tired making decisions all the time. Now, you may just doubt that whether it's really that we make that many decisions a day. I mean, I didn't realize I make that many decisions. Yes, we do. And it's just that some of the decisions we made, either unconsciously, or like we make it without realizing we're even making them. Some decisions are making because like it has become a habit. So like, what does it mean? Just like you don't have to make a decision getting up which side of the bed. Okay, I always would get up on the right side of the bed. That's me. That's my habit. Well, of course, I can't do it on the left side because Helen's on the left side. So, and same thing like, just wonder, like which leg did you put your pants on first? What side of the pants, like you put your leg in your pants? Do you know? Well, I most of the time put in my left leg first, and that's part of me. It becomes a habit, and something I don't have to think, and I already make that decision. Now it's food decisions, and maybe to some people it takes longer to make that decision. And every time when I go to a cafe with my wife, and I would always ask her, what do you want to eat? And just look at the menu and it takes, and for a little while, if I say, do you mind I make the decision for you? So I would say, how about this? And she always say no. But that's how it works, like now some are decisions that we change, decisions that we made previously. So that's why like we make many decisions that, and I mentioned before something called the Eisenhower matrix. Jeff ago that helped me to make decisions. Well, now how does it work? The Eisenhower decision matrix. Well, basically to divide all those things that's happening, it's whether something's urgent or not urgent, and whether something is important or not important. And you urgent and decide what you want to do. If there's something that is urgent and important, well, you do it, and you do it now. Okay, if it's something important, well, then you schedule it, do it some other time. You don't have to do it right away. But like something that's urgent, important, well, in this case, then you let someone else do it. You always do what you are the only person could do. And then if something is not urgent and not important, don't worry about it. Because I receive a lot of phone calls in a day. I look at it. Someone just tried to trick me or whatever. So don't worry about it. Don't even answer it. It's urgent. It looks like it sounds urgent, but it's not. It just kept ringing. I just silenced the phone. That's all. Now the chart has been very helpful to me, and especially helped me to prioritize doing things, and whether or even to do something or not at all. And however, this chart, as good as it can be, it doesn't help me make good decisions. So of course today I just want to chat with you as to, well, how do we make good decisions? And today in the first message for 2023, my gosh, it's already 2023. And I look forward to this July. I really do. I really look forward to this July because I'll be 67. Then I'll be able to draw my Social Security. I'll be so happy for that day to come. But anyway, in this first message, I've chosen Daniel chapter 1 and verse 1 to 8 to speak making good decisions in this new year, maybe even for the years to come. Now, let me just give you the background of the text, starting with the, actually, it's another decision, the decision to make war, a decision just to fight. So in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. Well, now wars is not something that's uncommon, and Judah have seen a lot of wars, and they fought a lot of wars too, a lot of battles and wars anyway. And this time, like any other time, they made decisions just to confront. But in this battle, something unusual and even unthinkable happened. Verse 2 is that and the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the vessels of the house of God, and he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and placed the vessels in the treasury of his God. Well, how did it happen? It's unthinkable. God's people actually lost in a war. They were even taken into captive. They failed. How could it happen? And not only that, like some of the vessels belonged in the house of God. The temple were taken captive to Babylon. Well, if you know the story behind it, some time ago when Hezekiah, king of Judah, was ill. In fact, like he was given the news that he would die soon. Well, he cried. He just couldn't take it. Couldn't take the news. It's just like, I'm still so young. I still have so many things I could have done. Why would the Lord just let me die? And he just prayed to the Lord, asked the Lord to, maybe extend his life. Well, the prophet Isaiah came back and told, God's given you another 15 years. So after he recovered from this illness, felt so good about it, and of course, that's a miss. That Babylon just sent one of them, maybe the ambassador or something like this, sent it over, sent a messenger over, and just to see how he's doing. And Hezekiah said, I'm great. I'm feeling so good about it. And in fact, he took that guy just to go around different places, including the temple. And he showed off all those gold vessels, all those great things, those treasury at in the temple. And then Isaiah came back again, said, "You stupid! All those things that you showed off, eventually it's going to be taken captive." And it happened. And this happened in this text. It happened in Daniel chapter 1. And of course, Nebuchadnezzar's action just fulfilled Isaiah's prophecy. Of course, these vessels, they're valuable. Now, in addition to taking some of the vessels in the temple as trophies, I would say it's just like trophies, King Nebuchadnezzar made another decision. In verse 3, it says, "Then the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility." But not just people, not just like people from the royal family and nobility. These individuals we're also to meet the following requirements: youth without blemish, of good appearance, and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent, and stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. Man, those are the creams of the cream, the top-notch people. You talk about these people, the IQ 200. It's a sharp, extremely intelligent people. The best of the best. And he wanted to choose all those best people out of thousands. And the people with great talent, and not just great talent, good looking too. And Nebuchadnezzar just gave them a 3-year scholarship to attend the best university in Babylon. And after that, a job awaited them immediately after graduation. Man, who can turn down this kind of an offer anyway? But I was wondering, why did Nebuchadnezzar treat this group of captives so favorably? In fact, in Babylon, a lot of people don't even get that opportunity, they don't get that chance. Why would he treat a group of captives so good? I'm sure you all know there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? And all in all, someone has to pay the bill. And how are they going to pay for it? In verse 5, that the king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate and of the wine that he drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of that time, they were to stand before the king. Oh, now we know that. Why? There is a catch to it. Because after the 3 years, they're going to serve the king. They become the king's people. Now, let me just think. Let me spend a lot of time look at it. Now, these people are from the royal family. They're all very intelligent, smart people. They're also very influential people. Now, why would Nebuchadnezzar just did such a great favor to them? Why is he doing that? Now, of course, if he were to take them in and eventually it's going to serve them, it would be a great asset to Nebuchadnezzar. But at the same time, I understand that if those people were to be removed from Judah, then Judah has no chance to turn around the country, no chance to recover. And just like that, Daniel and other people from Judah, they were brought to Babylon. Now, as far as I know, Daniel at that time was only a teenager, unprepared, inexperienced, and he realized maybe for the first time that he didn't get to choose. He didn't get to choose to go to Babylon. He didn't decide to just go to Babylon. He couldn't do that. I think he learned maybe for the first time there are something it's not up to us or not up to him to decide. Just like we learned the same thing some time ago, hopefully. There are things that we don't get to choose. We don't get to decide. We don't get to choose when we're going to be born. We don't get to choose what family we were born to. We don't get to choosing like that. And with that, he was just taken to a strange land. And there, Nebuchadnezzar just exposed the young man to a new culture. I don't know what about like Daniel at that time, whether he had a culture shock. I don't know whether some of you just came recently, whether you had this kind of a culture shock. Things are so different. Things are just so different. I mean, I remember when I came to this country many years ago, they sound different. I mean, like, in the days I was in the British world, our R's are very soft, R. Our T's are very loud, T, ta. But at least not in the time I was in Kentucky, the T's are so soft. The R's are so They don't understand what it meant. I would say, oh, I'm just going to park the car. And they say, what? It was just like, oh, park the car. And I remember once I went to a restaurant, and after a good meal, and pay for it, when I was leaving the restaurant, the waitress would say, "Yeah, come back." I said, "What happened? Did we not pay for the bill or something that we come back?" Oh, that's her way of saying goodbye. Every place has their own culture. You see those young people all of a sudden thrown into, to them, totally new environment, unprepared, as I said, unprepared, inexperienced, and everything's so new, maybe also so attractive. They all just want to just have a taste of it. Maybe some of the food they've tasted for the very first time. But anyway, 3 years. 3 years of free education with the opportunity to become a government official. And 3 years later, I would say they're no different from any other Babylonian person or Babylonian officials. I'm sure in few years, like Minford and you all would just talk and sound like any American. You learn to eat the American food. In-N-Out become your favorite restaurant. I don't know. I mean, anyway, but like. But anyway, under this 3 years of education, maybe you can call it re-education. And maybe some would call it assimilation. Now, I'm well aware that what Nebuchadnezzar was trying to do. I mean, we well knew that he has an ulterior motive. But what about these young men? Did they not know the plan that Nebuchadnezzar was trying to do, was trying to pull? Now, if anyone would notice, I mean, I would say those young men would be able to do that, right? They're sharp people, they're intelligent people, they're IQ 200 people. Anyone would be able to spot that? Well, the text didn't say. They only start to introduce some of the main characters of the book. Then Daniel and his friends were introduced. In verse 6, among these were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah of the tribe of Judah. And these teenagers all received new names. And the chief of the eunuch gave them names. Daniel, he called it Belteshazzar. Hananiah, he called Shadrach. And Mishael, he called it, somehow it's called Shadrach. And Mishael, he calls Meshach. And Azariah, he called it Abednego. But then, what's amazing is really in verse 8. It said, but Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that he drank. No, with that, I understand that Daniel knew. I mean, Daniel knew what he was facing. There's a conflict right there. And there's a serious and urgent and important problem that he must deal with immediately. But how? But how do you deal with it? Now, as a matter of fact, I spoke from Daniel a number of times. I love this book. I mean, in fact, this is one of my favorite books. And maybe it's also your favorite books too. You know, like you may remember some of the great stories about what? Daniel and the lion's den. And those are great stories. I just love those stories. I mean, I love to tell that like Daniel was an interpreter of dreams. And in fact, he even saw dreams and had dreams and saw visions. Man, I love people like this. You know, maybe I just love dreams. Maybe I love the dreams too myself. But like, I spoke from Daniel chapter 1 a number of times. And oftentimes, I focus on Daniel and how he would deal with the conflict that he was facing. Daniel first saw that the intention behind the preferential treatment, it was to defile and to assimilate. Then they decided not to be defiled, not to be assimilated. They found 3 like-minded partners who would pray together. In the end, they succeeded in resolving the problem, not being assimilated. Very happy ending, just like a lot of stories we love to hear. And they live happily ever after. We love stories like this. While I'm preparing for this message, I was moved, and maybe I'll say I was prompted to focus on something else instead of just how he would do it. I somehow I feel like we need to ask a question before this question. Yeah, there was a book some time ago. It's called QBQ, Question Before Question. Yeah, I feel like I need to just ask a question earlier. Why no one other than Daniel saw it was a conflict? Everybody seems to be just following along. The diet, yeah, no problem. Drink, no problem. The education's fine. New names, yeah. New clothing, yeah. I'll check them all. Why would Daniel, just out of all that, decide to say, I don't want to take the food. I don't want to take the drink? Why did he see it as a conflict? Now, as readers, we understand Nebuchadnezzar's intention because it was clearly written. He wanted to see the young men in 3 years would stand in his courts to serve him. But again, I guess the same question, why can't a group of highly intelligent young people, maybe if they were in the U.S., they'll attend Cornell University, end up not seeing this? Why would Daniel be the only person that's seeing it? Well, my understanding is, I think the other men probably see it too. They probably knew the intention that Nebuchadnezzar has. However, I think that's a big however, that those people didn't see it was a problem at all. So what? They don't see it as a problem. They don't see it as a conflict. But then I said, why then did Daniel see it as a problem and a conflict though? Well, I think from the scripture, I see some clues that I just want to share with you. And see verses 2 and 3. So the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the vessels of the house of God. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and placed the vessels in the treasury of his God. Well, so far, yeah, what we're trying to say, Pastor Allen. And in verse 3, then the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of royal family and of nobility. Yeah, we mentioned it. What are you trying to say? My understanding from these 2 verses is that these young men, just like the vessels taken from the temple, they're vessels. Yeah, of course, they're not like literal, that kind of a vessel. But vessel, it's just like instrument. It's something that can be used. It's something that's belonged to someone. In this case, it belonged to God. If it's God's vessels, they belong to God and they were served to be used by God. If he is a godly vessel, he does not serve others. Now, I believe Daniel understood his identity. He understood that he was God's instrument and vessels, that he belonged to God. And he could only be used by the Lord. And he knew to be a worthy vessel used by God, he is not to be defiled. That means to be holy. But I think it's also another very important understanding that I want to share with you. Now, for the world at that time, that many dominions or countries, they have an understanding there is a God in their so-called domain, in their area. And there is a God, and this God's power is limited just to this area. And also, like, if my God is more powerful, then if we in a battle, I would beat you. This country will beat the other country. That's how they see it. So, as I said, like the gods are limited to the domain under his jurisdiction. He can't go beyond the other places. Can't go there. So maybe that's why I understand. Okay, why Nebuchadnezzar would take them away to Babylon? Because in this case, it would take the young men away from the place they were protected, the place that where they their God would be able to help them. But like those young men may also get this kind of idea and feel like, okay, now that we're gone, we're no longer in Judah. We're now in Babylon. Our God cannot cover us. Our God cannot help us anymore. So some people start to just to ask a question, so what? So what if I just eat a piece of braised pork? So what if I were to eat a bat? And so what if I were doing things that I shouldn't? And so what? I'll be going to places where I shouldn't be. And so what? Of seeing things that I shouldn't be seeing. Because they have lost their awareness that God is there. I believe that is what sets Daniel apart. He sensed God's presence. He knew God was around. He understood that he could still just, in fact, he can still walk with God and talk with God, even in a foreign land. To walk with a holy God, he must not be defiled. He must become holy. And since he's a vessel of God, he must not be defiled. Since we are God's masterpiece. In fact, we in Ephesians said we are God's masterpiece. We're God's workmanship. Of course, we must not be defiled. Now, when I was writing this, I believe I received another inspiration. Beginning with the Septuagint, the book of Daniel belongs to the major prophets, along with Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. But there's a big difference between Daniel and the other three major prophets. All the other three mention the call of the prophet, but not Daniel. There's at least not written anywhere that he was called to be a prophet. Of course, some people in this case just rule him out as a prophet. But like in the New Testament, when Jesus actually called Daniel prophet, then I accept Daniel as a prophet. Because I believe the Lord is the authority. If he sets Daniel as a prophet, I believe he's a prophet. If he's a prophet, I believe he was called. And I believe his call came at the time of this crisis. And believe me or not, a lot of times, things change at the time of crisis. That you're no longer the same. Now, once again, I ask the same question. Why did Daniel aspire not to be defiled? Well, first, I already mentioned because he understood his identity. He understood he was an instrument of God. He was aware of God's presence in his life. He knew he could walk with God and talk to God. And finally, I understand he had this resolution because he himself is God's spokesperson. He is God's spokesperson. God will speak through him. He is God's mouthpiece. And Daniel taught me a major element of making decisions. And especially, we're talking about a believer making a decision. The underlying element behind it is that like we are to please God. We are to please God. And Daniel also taught me in making a sound decision as a believer needs to be aware of God's presence. I think oftentimes we make decisions independent from God. We make decisions without aware that's actually, God is here. We don't. We just simply make a decision as if it's not there. And oftentimes we make decisions as if we don't take God into consideration. And maybe it's maybe some questions that I can just ask you and for you to think about. Do you take God's will into account when you make decisions? Do you consider whether God is pleased or not? Have you heard a clear instruction from the Lord before you make a decision? That's why in this passage, I was just so convicted once again. Yes, Daniel 1 is one of my favorite chapters in the book. And I too, that I might have make decisions without taking God into consideration. I guess also I don't enjoy as much as I should God's presence. And that's why for this year, one of my New Year resolution is to read an old book. Really old book by a person called Brother Lawrence. He wrote a book called The Practice of the Presence of God. It's a great book, short book, little book, But I really encourage you also to read it. And I just learned just to be like him, just enjoy every moment with God. Like if you think your life is boring, I don't think it's any boring than some guys peeling potatoes every day. But he would actually find enjoyment doing this. Because he knew he's doing this for the Lord. It's amazing. I mean, it's a really amazing person and, of course, amazing story. Now, one of the responsibilities of the pastor's staff is to set the theme of the church for the new year at the end of each year. Well, at the end of last year, I believe just a few of us, we were all moved by the same Spirit. We decided unanimously, this is the theme. Be holy. Be holy. Brothers and sisters, it's not because I'm speaking on Daniel 1 on holiness that I want to set a theme on being holy. But I think just like all three of us, it's like Pastor Keone, myself, and also Pastor Simon, we all feel like we're getting the same understanding. We move by the same Spirit that this church is going to be different in 2023. Be holy represents the voice and desire of the pastoral staff. It reflects the action that we must be taken by those who are with God. And I pray that everyone would own and embrace this theme. And I praise and I pray the God we serve will use you mightily in 2023. And may you also be holy, that's worthy to be used by God. And may you receive all the blessings and the benefits as being the servant of God. Well, last, let me just share a little bit of a story for myself. As I said earlier, Daniel is my favorite book. When I was in grad school, at least in the first year of grad school, like our university was very close to a seminary. We've never short of seminary students want to be intern. We never short of finding a speaker to speak. But for some reason, for that year, that we don't have an intern. We don't have a Chinese intern, at least, is to help us to do like preach the word and Sunday schools and all sort of stuff. And nobody actually at that time was leading our little church. I don't know why. I mean, I volunteer actually. You know, I'll teach Sunday school. I don't know why. I just don't know why. And the more I teach, I found that, I mean, I should be spending time in the laboratory. I know I should be reading more of engineering stuff. I knew I should be just do more like all those mathematics, all the formulas. I just be able to do all that. But for some reason, I just lost all of those interests. I lost interest. And eventually I was very clear that doing this, teaching the word, is what I'm supposed to do. I gave up the dream of teaching and doing research at a university. But I know I'll be gaining a lot more. And today, 30 years later, I'm still doing something I enjoy most. I'm enjoying so much with people, being so much enjoying the time with all of you, teaching and leading a church. God changed people. But at the same time, we need to make sound decisions. Whether you're willing to follow God or you're following your heart. Whether you want to serve the king of this world or you want to serve our God in heaven. And that's the question that we have. Shall we pray? Dear God, once again, we thank you. Indeed, you're amazing. Thank you for just using young people like Daniel. And of course, same time, thank you for using older folks like me. And now everybody in between. Help us to realize we serve a great God. There's none other. And you're not limited by dominions or locality. And you're right here with us. May you receive all the praise and honor and glory. And may you be glorified by your people, by your loved ones. Once again, I'm so thankful. May your Spirit continues to teach us, help us make sound decisions. May you help us learn to live every day in your presence. Learn to be close to you. Just like an old song said, we walk with you and talk with you. We walk life's narrow way. But it's good, but it's amazing. Once again, thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.